Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the In Off the Post podcast. We're returning for our second episode. Back again, Daniel Bevan, and with me, as usual, is Ross Dawson.
Hello.
And Liam Thomas.
What's up?
And today we've got a special guest, Ben Rogers.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Ben, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get going.
Yeah, I'm second year journalism student in the University of South Wales, same as the boys here. I'm a massive Swansea City fan for all of my sins, as I heard last week.
Fan of the show as well.
And yeah, that's about it really for me.
Fantastic. Right, let's get into our first topic, shall we?
Okay, so today's episode is basically going to be an international football, the remaining and I think last World Cup qualifiers. Some of them were held last night, some of them are being held over the course of the weekend because it's obviously the international break. So we're going to start off with Thursday night's results roundup. Starting us off, Norway 8, San Marino 0.
Close game, that.
Romania 3, Kazakhstan 1. Malta 1, Lithuania 1. Montenegro 0, Denmark 1. Azerbaijan 1, Czech Republic 2. Armenia 1, Poland 6, thanks to a Lewandowski hat-trick, and then a Skirtle own goal in the 89th minute, ooh, that's quite painful, gave Scotland the 1-0 win over Slovakia, which means that if Scotland win against Slovenia in their next game, they could secure a playoff spot, which is it's quite good.
Potentially play Wales as well.
And then the last one in terms of the European ones is Germany 3, Northern Ireland 1.
Got a few of them excited there.
I know. So yeah, that Germany team, what can we say about it?
Just pure depth.
Pure depth. I mean, when you have the likes of like Leroy Sané on the bench and even like the world's best goalkeeper, Manuel Neuer, is
as well, you know.
So yeah, exactly. So Manuel Neuer being out injured, and they're still bringing top class goalkeepers in his
Kevin
replacement.
Trapp on the bench as well.
Exactly. So the depth in that side is just ridiculous.
I mean, it's the best in the world, isn't it? Like,
it is the best squad in the world.
People talk about the best starting 11 being Belgium, but best squad by far is Germany.
Be interesting to compare the second team to France's, definitely, in terms of depth.
Yeah.
France also has very good depth. So, moving on to the South American qualifiers, which is where it gets slightly more interesting.
And complicated.
Argentina 0, Peru 0, which is an interesting result. Brazil 0, Bolivia 0. Obviously, it was played. Bolivia played at home, so it was in Bolivia. Notorious for the
13,000 feet altitude. It's crazy up there.
I think Neymar posted on social media shortly after the game a photo of all the Brazilian lads with oxygen masks in the changing room.
Feet above water.
It's been described by Brazilian journalists as inhumane, but I think it's actually a brilliant tactic. You know, they're so used to playing from up there. You know.
But it is really harsh on the visiting clubs.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Which then goes into Chile 2, Ecuador 1, thanks to goals from Alexis Sanchez and Vargas. The boy Sanchez, which means that if Argentina win against their next game against Ecuador, they secure a playoff space as long as Brazil don't lose to Chile. However, if Chile will beat Argentina to the playoffs if they beat Brazil. So it's a very complicated situation right now in the South American camp.
Can we get that on the telly, please? That sounds a lot more interesting than anything that's going on in Europe.
It's very hard to try and comprehend that over audio, but basically, Argentina must win their next game to get a playoff spot.
And they can play the mighty New Zealand.
They can. And if Chile beat Brazil in their next game, then they pip Argentina to the playoff spot. And as long as Brazil either draw or win against Chile, they automatically qualify because they are currently top of the group. So, which leads us into the main game of last night, and which will be one of our main talking points as far as internationals go. The England-Slovenia match last night. Liam, you're the one that watched the match.
Caught the second half of the game. Really only came alive in the 60th minute once Jesse Lingard came on for Oxlade-Chamberlain.
Most overrated player in the world. I'm just going to say that now.
Oxlade-Chamberlain?
I was saying Lingard,
Both.
but probably both. In fairness.
I would say Jesse Lingard's overrated if people actually rated him, because I don't think, even as a United fan, I fully don't rate Lingard.
I think he's the biggest fraud in football, but we're going so far off topic.
His passion for the club and the fact that he's a
Emmanuel Eboué was passionate about Arsenal. we'll put it that way.
Yeah, the fact that he's a homegrown lad is probably a main reason that he gets in the team, and he's a player to bring on really on the wings. Is a bit different to Ashley Young.
Every time he plays, he always seems to come on and get an assist or a goal, and it frustrates me.
No,
Well,
the thing that keeps him in the team is like every 3 or 4 months he scores an absolute worldie,
And he always scores at Wembley.
and that keeps him in the squad for like the next couple of months. But no, I want to say I'm glad that he hasn't got much game time for United this season, but it's quite sad because his form's obviously bang average, but I'm still glad that
Do you think you do a little loan deal maybe, Ross?
yes and no, maybe. I don't know. I'd like to see him go out on a short loan, but I don't want that to like turn into a situation where the loan player prefers they move away and they stay out there and they don't fulfil the potential that perhaps, well, I say potential, Jesse Lingard's what, like 23, 24
No,
now?
he's 25 now.
He's 25, is he?
I'm pretty sure.
Damn.
But then I've got to say, like, I honestly wouldn't take him at Cardiff. I've seen him play in the Championship for, I think, was it Derby he was on loan, and he was awful. He was actually awful. Like, we've got Mendes lying on the right. We don't need Jesse Lingard.
He did have a little bit of a resurgence under Van Gaal, but I say resurgence as in he
was the only one who wasn't playing poorly.
basically, yeah. And he scored that nice goal in the FA Cup final.
True. Anyway, England played last night.
Well, yeah, he definitely impacted the game when he came on. He put Rashford through, whose confidence got the better of him. Cheeky dink attempt over the goalkeeper, except it landed about a football
Is Rashford having confidence necessarily a bad thing, though?
No, not necessarily, but there's obviously a time and a place for that kind of technique.
Did a similar chip against the Swans, I remember, which was... I think it went straight into Lucas Fabianski's hands as well, so it seems like I think he keeps trying and hasn't.
It's the end product.
It's the law of averages. The more times he tries it, eventually one will go in. But I do think I did see that attempt. I thought he should have tried to shoot. Like
he does that. He does that all the time.
His decision making is poor, but then he is only 20.
But if he pulls it off, we'll all say he's brilliant. So you know what I mean.
Anyway.
Yeah, he came on and it was a good performance from him. It also meant Sterling moved out onto the right and Sterling played much better there.
Let's talk about Sterling. What a resurgence he's had under Pep Guardiola.
Well, he played behind Kane last night till about the 60th minute and wasn't shown much. But as soon as he moved on to the right, which I think is his preferred position, he was much more positive on the ball.
Yeah, I would say so. But it's interesting that you said that he played in the centre. I didn't see the starting lineup until after the game. I actually thought that he was just drifting inside because he was going out on the wing. That's where he's more natural.
But if he's out on the left, he does tend to drift in anyway, because he is a finishing winger basically. That's
true, but he hasn't got the spatial awareness or the passing prowess of someone who could play in midfield.
He was also denied a goal by Slovenia's captain, Caesar.
Oblak? Was it Oblak?
No, the defender actually.
Okay. I thought
keeper was beaten, but sort of a move which would make a professional Twister player proud from the captain, as he sort of twisted his ankle away from himself to block the ball.
It's dedication, that.
It was very good
ankles
block.
on the line.
Yeah, but England really struggled. Slovenia's 4-4-2 meant they basically were playing against 8 men.
We talked about the 4-4-2 in the last episode.
Eight men behind the ball, and Slovenia were just reliant on Ilicic up front, who obviously plays for Atlanta in the Serie A.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that Gareth Southgate, he's not a tactician. He hasn't ever managed a quality team. I think he got Middlesbrough relegated, didn't he? It was considered one of the worst Premier League teams in history, though. But as an England manager, he has to learn to play against teams that are going to come to Wembley and just shut up shop, because that's what everyone does.
Which segues nicely into our next topic that we're going to discuss. Well, I say topic, it's along the same topic of England, but a quote from Ray Wilkins states that... Oh, hang on, let me just find it. I'll edit this out.
I think he said that it was if Pep Guardiola was number 2 and Mourinho was number 1 as an England manager, they wouldn't do better than Gareth Southgate. Now, there's no context to that. We just saw Sky tweet it before we went live and we thought we got to throw this in. However, no matter what context you throw in there, it still makes zero sense.
Well, both managers like to build their own teams. You often see with the Mourinho effect, obviously the second season, he gets a transfer window or two under him, buys the players that suit.
Very few managers are going to do a job in their first season in a brand new team, in a new club, in a new country, or whatever it is. You saw that with Mourinho and Pep Guardiola last year.
Yeah.
I think that the main thing that he was probably trying to get out of it was that the team isn't particularly good. And it isn't. This is probably one of the worst England teams we've seen in a long time. The quality isn't there. The depth isn't there. Other than the odd bright sparks, Kane, Ali, Rashford, if you've got to call up someone like Jesse Lingard or Tom Huddleston or Jake Livermore, then you're gonna struggle.
Full of very similar players.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of
for sure.
Sterling suited players, and the
obviously Walcott not getting a look in at the moment.
I can't
Rightly
so
so,
rotate the squad. With the managers they've had, they just seem to play the same sort of side.
Yeah, exactly.
Did Welbeck get a call up?
I'm not too sure. Was he in the team?
I would say that.
I know Defoe.
Welbeck definitely should be playing. I think he is a good. On his day.
Would you put him over Kane?
I put him alongside Kane, probably behind him. Not in a necessarily cam position, just playing off of him.
I don't think Welbeck has the ability to play off of someone. I think he is. He makes runs and he scores goals within like the 18-yard box, but I don't think he can control an attack in play. If that makes sense.
Trying to build a team around him playing behind the striker also, I don't think that would work for England.
No.
I think Kane was captain last night, wasn't he? I think he's probably going to get captain.
I would like to see Kane as captain for England.
Yeah, I would say.
But they said that, or either Henderson, who played alongside Dyer last night.
Henderson apparently had a woeful game last night.
They lack something. The pair of them, they're far too negative. They need a drive.
Yeah, I was going to say they're not attack. They're not known for their attacking.
No.
Capabilities. Dyer is a makeshift centre back.
Yeah.
To be honest,
he is a squad player. He is literally an English Daily Blend.
Oh, for sure, sure. He can play. He can do a job a bit of everything. I do like Eric Dyer. How he's getting England call-ups, I'll never know though.
Let's just say 50 million linked to United last summer.
Does that make a player good?
No, really, no. Well, I mean, when you sign him Fellaini for 27 million, but even that seems like a decent deal in today's market.
I mean, well, because he scored a brace the other day, yeah. But in 3 weeks' time, when he
has his uses.
Yeah, in 3 weeks' time, when he's just not playing, and United fans will call for him to be lynched.
Yeah. But yeah, considering how well of a season the English, Tottenham, they had a really good season last year, and a lot of their key players were English players. So I think a lot of people were getting excited over England yet again, just because this is the first time in, say, 2 or 3 years where they've had a squad where some of the players have been recognised around the world as being quality players.
But then, Spurs is the first English-dominated team to do well in a long time.
Yeah, for sure.
And but then they're taking those players and then playing them in a different way. Roy Hodgson tried to play them in a certain way, and then Gareth Southgate's trying to do it in a different way. You've got to play the way Spurs play. If that's what you want to do, if you want to go and take all the Spurs players...
And they tried doing that for a while, because I remember England played 3 at the back for a couple of times, because a lot of the English players were used to playing in that system in their real clubs.
Yeah, but they weren't doing the high pressure counter attack that Pochettino does. They were just playing. They were playing 4-4-2 tactics with 5 at the back, so it was just the most boring football I've ever seen.
I recall the one game they played, there was 6 Tottenham players in the starting 11 for England. I can't remember what match it was.
It must have been one of the matches immediately after last season.
Yeah, I presume so.
Because you've still got the likes of Dele Alli, who's
suspended obviously for his classic gesture.
Classic
celebration.
What a boy.
Me and Kyle Walker, we were just it was just friendly banter. It was,
But if you look in the England team, there is quality there. But it's just with a
team of individuals. How long have we said that though?
It's been like that for so long, which is why I think the comment from Ray Wilkins may have some truth to it, because
there is a definite issue with the squad, and I think a lot of managers would. It's just a mess that Roy Hodgson made, because
their blueprint on the team, because it's players who, I mean, even that team yesterday, there wasn't many players who do play for the same team now, especially since Walker's left Tottenham.
Funny enough, I saw didn't Oxlade-Chamberlain get a call up?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he
did.
Yeah, he
played.
played last night, got
I
sent
don't
off,
understand that.
kicked
I really don't
a bunch of
understand
water bottles.
He's really just for me. I saw some since he's been with Liverpool, the passing, and he just seems he's all over the place, and I don't really understand. You need a type of manager to come in and say, how the hell are you in the starting lineup, and just have the guts to be able to drop players.
This is why I
Like
appreciate no-nonsense managers.
Which
If
is
you just
why I
like-
think Harry Redknapp would have been a much better manager over
It's
Hodgson.
like if you
Yeah,
play
when he was
poorly,
hired, yeah.
it's just simply if you play poorly, you're not in the squad.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't like keep having faith in these players who are consistently either not performing or on bad form, because that's what clubs end up doing, is playing players who are on poor form, and it just impacts results too much.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do have to prioritise a player's form for over a result, let's say.
Yeah,
There's
I
a
agree.
complete arrogance in the England team, and that's been said for a long time. But
Let's be fair though, the England team has been messed about over recent years with the whole Sam Allardyce thing last
of
year.
course, and the FA
And,
are fully to blame as well. But what I'm saying is that with English players in general, when they go to their club, that's why they never go abroad, because abroad they would not put up with what England players
There
get
is
away
a
with.
specific English style of football that
Exactly.
I think.
Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain has been playing in the Premier League for 8 years, and I don't think there are any fans. Bear in mind, Arsenal fans don't even really know what he's good at. And then you go and see him play for England, and he's playing. Where did he even play last night? I couldn't tell. He wasn't really given a position.
He played behind Kane. However, the few first
Did he?
performances he had for us at right wing back, he was probably our best player on the field. But he obviously stresses that he wants to play in a central holding role.
Which I
Someone
thought
needs to tell him he can't.
he did quite well for Arsenal when Arsenal were in a really bad spot last year.
He's
I
free a
think.
pass, but I think at times he overdoes it. Definitely.
He did have a
and,
couple of good games in
Yeah.
midfield
Yeah,
for
yeah.
Arsenal last season, I think.
He doesn't have the defensive positioning to be a midfielder, though.
No.
And he either needs to learn it, or someone, preferably Jurgen Klopp, should just tell him, you're not playing there. You're not playing there until you can prove that you
But
can
we've
play
all
there.
heard about the arrogance of Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah, and
Well,
I mean, that's kind of infamous.
Yeah, if someone criticises his choice to start a player or the player's form, he will persist in making sure that player plays, and he tries to prove everyone else wrong, basically.
Which
So-
is a poor style of management. It
Yeah.
is, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Like I said, no nonsense is a really underrated approach to managing, I think. Like, it's all good to have faith in your players and say that your players do have the quality to reach potential, but I do think that managers need to prioritise form, to get results, basically.
True, but
Especially
the
leading into the tournament.
Yeah,
The best
exactly.
no-nonsense
it's a
managers.
huge. It's the World Cup. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the best no nonsense managers out there are English managers. But the problem is the ones who have been managing England, and they're so obsessed with getting English managers in to manage England, have all been yes men.
Yeah, there seems
Yeah.
to be sort of a bubble from the FA where they get to choose the managers that they want. Obviously, Harry Redknapp was linked with the job, and he seemed perfect in terms of being a no-nonsense manager. And I suppose the speculation of the job even affected Tottenham's results that year, and he didn't go on to get the job.
It's the highest paid job in football. So the person who should be there should be the best manager in the world.
yeah.
Yeah,
Want someone to be
at the
honest.
moment,
Like the
it's
best
Gareth
manager-
Southgate.
Yeah.
The best managers in the world don't necessarily want to manage international football.
Well, but
because-
some do. Some like to have that on their CV, or some like to just try something new. Antonio Conte, who famously is like obsessed with football, he watches all the football he can get. When he went from managing in Serie A and then went and did the Italy job, he apparently, according to his wife, got incredibly depressed because he couldn't watch and play or see his team play every single week. And there was a lot of travelling involved for him to have to go and see these players play. He couldn't see them in training every day.
It's a bit of a holiday, isn't it? An international job in comparison.
Oh, it's a
It's
joke.
a much
Yeah, but-
easier schedule, I think.
You get tickets to any game you want. It seems great.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I mean, the last time England brought in a manager who wasn't English was with Fabio Capello, and we all saw how that sort of got on.
And
But then was Fabio Capello the right man at the time? Probably not.
Well, a lot of England fans were excited by him.
He has a great
becoming
CV.
England
I think
manager.
he's managed I think didn't he manage the Russian national team after that or something like that?
Yeah.
But then
something like that. Yeah.
but he'd also managed at Real Madrid and had big success. You know, he's a good manager, but he couldn't handle England. It also didn't help that he couldn't speak English. Anyway, I think we've talked about this for far too long now.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think the issue with the best managers in the world is they get snapped up by big clubs anyway, and it's much easier. Like, there's more opportunities to win silverware at a club level than obviously international. I think that's more towards what they're geared towards, basically.
But isn't international trophies like more prestigious? Winning a World Cup is, better than winning a Champions League.
But when you list off someone's accomplishments in football, it's usually to do with club level, not necessarily like World Cups, because a player or a manager or a club, well, I say club, but a team, they more often win domestic championships and stuff like that rather than like international tournaments.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. Yeah.
Okay, so which leads us on to our next topic, which is also revolved around England. Who will be key for England's World Cup campaign? Which players, which strategies, what do England basically need to do to have a successful World Cup campaign in the summer?
Sack Gareth Southgate.
At this point in time?
Yeah, well, before the tournament starts. Just get a manager who is tactically inept. Who knows what a tactic is.
Which managers would you recommend that are available at this point in time?
Ancelotti. Tuchel.
It's not a bad shout.
No.
I think a different captain. I think you need a captain who's going to drive the team.
Who is the captain at the moment? Is it John Henderson who's actually
I don't think
Kane
there
is
is a permanent
actually captain.
He's actually captain.
Moment,
See,
but they still haven't chosen an actual
I still
player.
think Kane should be the captain.
I do too, because he's going to be England's, whether he stays in England or not, he's going to be England's best player for a generation.
But we didn't see him till the 90th minute.
But he did it when it mattered, though, didn't he? He did it when it really mattered.
I just think they need a captain who's going to drive the team. I don't think a target man who's waiting for a ball to be pinged up the field every 10, 20 minutes is good.
But I still think Harry Kane is the poster boy for English football at the moment. And I think if the FA or the England national team want to push its star English players to a worldwide scale, they need to make Harry Kane captain. Because it worked for Wales with Gareth Bale. You could make an argument for 5 other players in the Welsh team who would make a good Wales captain, but because Bale was the captain for the Welsh team across Euro 2016, it did help propel that football team in terms of popularity. So I think Harry Kane should definitely captain the England team in the World Cup next year.
Only thing is, if Kane isn't captain, I honestly couldn't name you a player who I think should be captain.
Exactly,
There's
yeah.
not a leader of the team, is there, definitely. I can't see. I don't see. So that slight disagree with you there, boys. I'm not gonna lie. I can't see Kane as such as a. I think they need a leader, definitely. Somebody who can.
Who would you put? Gary Cahill, maybe?
You can't pick out a player.
Cahill's a shout.
Joe Hart?
Pick out a player. Joe
Definitely
Hart
not.
is very vocal.
Definitely not Joe Hart.
But Joe Hart, no, I won't pick him.
I don't think he's England #1, never mind a captain. No. I think...
I'd love to see Jack Butland have a good tournament.
Jack Butland, I would say Tom Heaton, and even Fraser Forster are all better goalkeepers than Joe Hart.
Fair enough. Maybe Kyle Walker's captain, someone like that. John Henderson, maybe.
Well, he's the only other.
He's the main one, I'd say. Yeah.
There seems to be.
Because he's been given the armband a couple of times, and he has it a lot for Liverpool as well. So I think it's definitely between those two. I think Harry Kane or John Henderson.
Yeah.
In theory, a captain should be the first name on the team sheet, and I think Harry Kane is going to be the first name on the team sheet every week.
Yeah.
I think if
maybe Jordan Henderson.
I think if John Stones had performed to the level they expected when Manchester City signed him, I think he could have been in the run.
Oh yeah,
captain. He's a player who
That's
drives
true.
forward, but he's been quite disappointing.
He's come good this season though. I like him a lot this year.
I think he's definitely one for the future, like Euro 2020 or something like that. If he continues his form with Man City, he would definitely be captain.
He seems to be one of the only England players who doesn't play to an English style. Guardiola
Plus,
putting that stamp
you're
on
right.
him.
You're right.
I find it quite something quite romantic about centre backs being the captain of a team.
Yeah,
I think it's really good if a
Tradition,
centre back
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
It's really like you say, tradition, and I quite like that.
Yeah.
So I would love to see John Stones maybe become England captain.
Yeah. Right, Ben. This is where your expertise will come in. You said earlier you're a Swansea fan, and as a Cardiff fan, I think we've had many a great conversation about Welsh football. Yeah. So last week we talked quite in depth about who we think is going to be the next Premier League manager to be sacked. Paul Clement was one of the names that we talked about. Do you think that's fair?
He's definitely in the running, I'd say, at the moment. Things are not looking great. I think it'd be a bad time to sack him right now. It just seems trendy to sack managers after a few losses.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
It does seem just trendy to just get rid of the manager, and everyone calls for it straight away.
How long has Clement been in the job now?
This would have been he came in there towards the end of last season, really.
Yeah, I think it's way too soon now.
Yeah, and he pulled us right out the mire. You know, I think we were bottom of the league when he first came.
Yeah, I think he was.
And he cleaned up Bob Bradley's mess, basically. And you know, really did.
I actually heard a Swansea fan, sorry to cut you off, say that he wished Bob Bradley had gotten you relegated, because at least then you wouldn't have Paul Clement. The criticism is coming thick and fast.
I think that's unfair. I definitely think that's unfair.
I do too.
Would you blame the players?
I definitely blame. I blame him to a degree.
Or is it more an issue that's more towards upwards in the hierarchy, where you think it's the board or something? I
think definitely the window hasn't gone the way they thought. It was bringing in Renato Sanchez
that we discussed on last week, or the last episode.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about that, but Sanchez definitely not much fit. I think he thought Sanchez and Boney would come and relift the team a bit, you know, replace.
So did I. I thought those two signings were going to.
You know, when we first had that game against Newcastle, I've never been so excited for a Swansea game to see, you know, Sanchez. Everyone just raved about Sanchez.
A worldwide name.
Yeah, and bringing back Boney, but it hasn't worked for them. And Clement just keeps sticking with Boney, keeps sticking with Sanchez. Obviously, he's got to. But there's definitely if we can't get our players to perform, what's he supposed to do? I definitely think there's a problem with the he doesn't know his formation yet. I heard you speaking last week. It was really interesting. It got me thinking when you said that Chelsea brought in the three in the back / 5 in the back.
Yeah.
Obviously, Paul Clement come and try and stamp that on the Swansea team.
Well, I mean, of course he did. He's a Premier League manager.
Yeah, it's true, yeah. But it just doesn't work. It really doesn't. You can't play Kyle Norton as a as a wing back. He's not a wing. He can't. We haven't got. And at the moment, it seems we haven't got a player in the team who can beat the first man from across. And then he buys Wilfred Boney for for aerial. Why would you buy? First of all, you got to buy a player who can cross the ball half decently to be able to feed the likes of Boney. And and at the moment we got Wayne Routledge as a winger.
Because on paper I don't.
Yeah, Kyle Norton wing back, and then we've got Olsen as a left wing back.
Kyle Norton, when he was at Tottenham, he had an average goals against him of 4 goals a game.
Oh my God, is that true?
Can you blame him?
That's amazing. That's a great stat.
He's consistent. He's consistently made defence. I've noticed a few times him just ball watching and you can't do in the Premier League. You've got the likes of like Harry Kane coming off the edge of shoulders, defender's shoulders, and just they love those types of goals. And if you're not watching where your man's going, it'll take literally a second, and that's why we get those 1-0 losses and those 2-1s and stuff like that.
I think
sloppiness.
I saw another good stat. It was the last 10 games that have ended in a one goal difference loss to a last-minute goal. Swansea have been the team to concede it 4 times.
And it's because of stuff like that, switching off towards the end of games when players start getting tired, and you need to be. Alfie Mawson is a player who I really like Alfie Mawson, but he's the same. He seems he's got that bit of an experience where he switches off for a second and makes a mistake, and that's how we end up losing games against the likes of Watford.
On paper, your transfer business was actually really good,
exactly,
though.
I
agree. What do you think they should have done differently?
Invested definitely defensively. They still haven't. For me, they still haven't replaced Ashley Williams.
That was going to lead me into my next question of how well do you think Swansea have been replacing their big big players that they've sold?
They definitely haven't. You can't replace the likes of Gylfi Sigurdsson
with Fosu Mensah.
Yeah.
No,
Rocky
Rocky.
Mensah.
Rocky.
Mensah.
Yeah, not Foster
Yeah.
Mensah.
Foster
Rocky.
Mensah went to Crystal Palace. That's another kettle of fish.
But I like Rocky Mensah. I was at the Watford game a couple of weeks back, and he came on, and he seems to just like to me a bit of a faster and younger Leon Britton. You know,
How has he been playing? Like, where has he been playing for Swansea?
He comes on a lot. Definitely more central. Plays in between.
Because to my knowledge, he was more of a holding player.
Yes, he definitely holds. I can't see him chipping in with many goals this season, but that's another area where I think we need where the goals from midfield are going to come from.
Wasn't Mensah brought in and as kind of and billed to be a player who can bring back the Swansea way, you know, because he's Spanish and Swansea like to play along the ground, you know.
But it seems Ronaldo Sanchez has come in, and you know Mensah's seems he's out of the question really. I don't know whether he's maybe not 100% fit, but neither is Ronaldo Sanchez, you know.
So I would say personally that the only player of the big sales that you've actually replaced is Fernando Llorente with Boney.
And I think that's a poor bit of business there. Boney.
Do you think signing Boney's a backward step?
Definitely. I think they say not to go. They say don't come back, not to go back to your old clubs. But
it was very. Ross has already used this term already, but I like it. It was a bit romantic, wasn't it? You really wanted him back. I think a lot of fans did.
Match made hen, really, didn't it?
But and you've got 12 million for a 32-year-old. I think that's decent business.
For an experienced Premier League striker.
Yeah, definitely. But Llorente, I don't know. I think he's definitely got a goal in him. And whereas Boney, it seems like anything he does, he's lost that few yards of pace he had from his last spell at Swansea.
True.
He seems a little bit sluggish when he gets the ball. He's not holding up as much. He's not winning as many headers. It's time will tell. I remember when he first came to Swansea, he had a slow start, and everyone said like, "Who is this guy? A wreck or something?" And he's like he's towing a caravan when he's running. You know what I mean? But
he fit right in at Swansea.
But he had a bit of a spell. But then he came back stronger and he did well. It's just time will tell, and it'll be interesting to see how he does. But I can't see him being a massive replacement for Llorente. But I'm excited about Tammy Abraham though. I think he is definitely obviously we're on loan though, so it's not gonna. He's not one for the future, but he's a tall boy. He's quick off the mark. It's just I think he needs to hold up the ball a little bit better than what he does. But yeah, just time will tell with Boney and Sanchez maybe. When he's a bit fitter, he might come to light as well, but yeah, it's not looking good at the moment, definitely.
So what would you do to improve the squad? Who would you sign? What systems would you use? Stuff like that.
Scrap the 3/5. I think that's the worst decision.
Yeah.
You can't play Norton as when he gets up the pitch, he's too slow getting back. He's leaving us in the counter a lot, so I'd scrap that formation. In terms of signings, I'd get rid of the Deadwood. For example, well, there's a few players that I think Wayne Routledge. I think he's past it. We need to bring back the wingers, definitely the type of wingers who could get on the line, whip in a good cross, maybe create that bit of magic. The 1-2s with the right backs and left backs, filling space. Nathan Dyer, he's just recovering from. He's just coming back from injury, Dyer.
Okay.
But then again, he's another one though.
I thought he went. He went on loan to Leicester.
He did go on loan to Leicester. Yeah. He came back and then he picked up an injury. He's been out for a while, but he's coming back now. Then again, he could come back and be exactly like he's not. Do you know what I mean? He's nothing amazing, you know.
And with an injury, he will come back with a couple of yards less space.
Yeah, definitely, and
pace, for sure.
he's getting on a bit as well now. I think I don't know how old he is.
It is incredibly hard though for a team like Swansea to replace the players that did leave. I mean, these players, sort of grow at these clubs, and then other teams, teams who are respectively better than Swansea pick them up. So for them to try and replace them with someone of the same ability is always going to be a struggle for a team.
I think I said it last week, didn't I, that no players joining Swansea thinking, all right, I'm going to stay there and I'm going to take them into a top 4 team. They're hoping I'm going to have 1 or 2 good seasons to be picked up by a top 4 team. Anyway, just to close off the segment then, just quickly, some quick fire questions. Clement, in or out?
In. for now, definitely. I think it'd be silly to get rid of him right now.
What's one position you want to strengthen?
And who would you sign to strengthen that position?
Exactly, yeah.
Realistically.
Yeah.
So, I think a solid centre back. I think Fernandez is doing well at the moment, but inconsistent, definitely, as well as Alfie Mawson. So fill that void where Ashley Williams left, the leader. Sort of, I think we need to sign a leader. I think we were linked with Jagielka, believe it or not, from Everton. I remember
that would be an
he
okay
sort of has the
signing,
leader attributes, maybe, but he's. I don't know. I can't really save a player who could come in right now. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I won't be able to think of anyone who could come in and improve us instantly. I think it's going to take a little bit of time, and luckily we get, well, not luckily, the problems are already starting to show early on in the season, which maybe is a good factor. Clem's got another window to come and maybe sign a few players which he thinks will add to the team. Renato Sanchez, I was just going to say just now, there's obviously a reason why he's come to Swansea on loan and why Bayern Munich want to leave go of a player who was meant to be. To me, it just seems strange how if he's that good, how isn't he getting into the Bayern Munich team? You know.
True. That's true.
Do you know what I mean? There's obviously something not right, and somebody else has picked up. Well, Ancelotti when he was there, has obviously picked up the. He's not all that he seems to be. But like I said, time will tell, and over the games, hopefully he improves. He can't get any worse, can he?
So hopefully we'll have you on a few times over the course
definitely.
of the year. And so I want Ross to make a note of this
definitely.
now. Where do you think Swansea are going to finish?
Oh, this will be interesting.
So every time you're on, we can make a note of where you're at.
Yeah.
And then by
then you can laugh at me.
By the end of the season, we'll see. It was week 14 that he was actually right.
No, I think mid-table finish at the max. I think is probably what it's gonna come down to. If not, another relegation battle.
A specific position.
I'm gonna go 13th.
13th.
Okay. Yeah. Go
I did it last week, so Ross is going to laugh at me in May when Cardiff.
We'll make that a big end of season special. It's just you two laughing at how poorly you predicted both of your teams.
Yeah.
I got a good special episode in mind that I spoke about.
Was it the Swansea vs Cardiff special?
Yeah.
That's gonna be.
So I'll pitch this to Ben now, right? So we get you and me on, and these two, they work up a quiz of Cardiff and Swansea, and we see who knows their clubs better.
It's obviously gonna be you though, isn't it? You just literally. he knows he's gonna win that one. So.
Well, there's two rhymes to it. There's how well you know your clubs and how well you know your rivals. So just to change it
I think
up.
that'd be interesting. Ban research beforehand.
Yeah, ban research.
Yeah, okay.
We're going to me and Liam will come up with the questions.
Whoever loses has to pay another pint.
Right, well, stay tuned for that. Yeah, so make sure you look out for that in a few weeks' time, because that's going to be a great episode, I think.
Cool.
So, speaking about Welsh football, this leads us nicely to the main topic of today's episode, and it is a preview for Wales's final, well, hopefully final qualifiers for the World Cup next summer. Of course, they are playing Georgia tonight it is. As we'll hopefully get this podcast up before kick-off tonight.
Yeah, I think it'll be before kick-off.
Yeah, okay. And then that leads into the big game on Monday that I'm sure we're all going to drink many beverages too that night.
Bev with Bev.
That's of course the home game to the Republic of Ireland. So just some quick Wales team news. We did discuss that Gareth Bale could potentially be out for the remaining two qualifiers. That has been confirmed by both Chris Coleman and representatives from Real Madrid. So on October the 3rd, he was confirmed to miss the last two qualifiers and is out for a month, despite Zidane speculating that the forward may indeed be fit. Barnsley's Tom Bradshaw has been brought into the team to take his place. For a quote from ITV says, Gareth Bale is not as badly injured as first thought, as fears he had torn his calf muscle. Spanish champions Real Madrid said medical tests revealed the winger suffered a strain with swelling, but no tear in the soleus. who knows how to pronounce that, muscle in his left leg. So it's not a tear, it is just a strain. Chris Coleman says it is far too early to rule out Gareth Bale returning for potential playoff matches if Wales do get to the playoff stage. That was according to the BBC yesterday. Norwich striker Marley Watkins still waits for his first international cap, having pulled out with injury. He is replaced by uncapped Barnsley forward Ryan Hedges, which leads me into the first debate regarding the Wales squad and with Gareth Bale's absence. Will Ben Woodburn get his first start, and does he deserve his first start for Wales?
I think definitely he does. I think after his first performance, I think Chris Coleman was quite hesitant to let a player, based upon one performance, get into the first team. Doesn't really want to mess with the chemistry too much, but with Bale's absence, there's definitely no reason why Woodburn can't get his place in the team, for sure.
I think he needs to as well. Yeah, that's true.
He definitely seemed lively, didn't he, when he came on? And
Exactly.
He's got that something about him, and you just, you know it straight away when he's coming on and taking shots from mind. He's got confidence, and he definitely.
He's got that little thing in the final third that I think Wales have been missing.
Yeah, I agree.
That I think will definitely be missing with Gareth Bale.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, from my perspective, it's kind of like we don't really play with wingers. So if we need to change formation up a bit, and that could shape the team. But I don't think there's any reason why he can't play as a striker, kind of off Sam Vokes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe as a replacement for like the Hal Robson-Kanu sort of role.
Yeah, because Robson-Kanu hasn't been playing well at all.
No, he like the very mobile sort of forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think Ben Woodburn could definitely play in that, maybe in a similar role to Aaron Ramsey as well. So like Ramsey and Woodburn will be playing off folks, sort of given that supply that Gareth Bale usually gives and receives.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Just so Sam Vokes can focus strictly on getting into positions where he can score goals, because let's face it, without Gareth Bale, it's going to be quite hard for Wales to score as many goals.
Bale has played. He hasn't been playing his best, though, has he?
No.
I think that he hasn't been involved in as many goals. Hasn't been as lively as he seemed to have been. I think he's still unfit, really.
He has been really unlucky with injuries this year.
Yeah, I agree.
He'd still need to start every game.
Yeah,
for sure.
For me, the quality he brings to the team, it doesn't matter what form he's on, he's got to play.
Yeah. And it's not just Wales fans saying that he is a world-class player, because I hear countless people compare Bale to like the top 5 in the world, and like saying that he is amongst those sort of names, like the Neymars, the Suarez's, stuff like that. Because we both know Messi and Ronaldo are like a tier above, but like those players that sort of trickle down, like Lewandowski, Suarez, people include Bale in the mix with those names.
I mean, there was a time when he was considered the third best player in the world when he was at Spurs, and he was scoring goals from 30 yards for fun. But I think now he's obviously out of that question, because he has been so inconsistent and because of injuries and whatnot. But he can still do it. I mean, you saw that goal he scored against Dortmund.
It's a very similar situation to the Marco Reus at Borussia Dortmund.
Oh, he's a fantastic player. Can't stay fit.
He is a top tier world class player, but his fitness is sort of what brings him down from being able to achieve the levels that Messi and Ronaldo have. Because I remember as well, when he either in his first or second season at Madrid, people were talking about who's going to be the first player after Messi and Ronaldo to win the Ballon d'Or, and it was between him and Neymar.
Yeah, I remember that.
Because there was a time, believe it or not, when people did argue over who was better, Bale or Neymar.
Yeah, but that was probably because Neymar hadn't quite broken into Europe yet, had he? But Bale
already had one season on him in the La Liga.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, the stat the newspapers keep adopting is that Wales haven't won any of their last 10 games without Gareth Bale.
Well, that's because he plays every game. You know,
that's true.
I think if you go back 10 games that we haven't played without him, we're probably going back 3 years.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's also Ramsey's 50th cap for Wales. If he can replicate a performance like he did against Serbia, then
I thought he was brilliant.
I think we should be fine.
Yeah, I thought he was fantastic. He was a quality player.
He's going to be key in this match tonight, especially.
He'll turn up, isn't he? Definitely.
So, what are you boys' predictions for tonight's game?
I'm sticking with my prediction from in the week. I'm going to say 2-0. 2-0 Wales.
2-0. You sticking with yours?
I think I'll stick to 2-1. I think the Nerves may see an early goal from Georgia, but I do think we will win, definitely.
And I'm going to stick with my 2-1. Ben?
I think I go 2-1 as well.
2-1.
We struggle for early stages, but then we'll
Alright,
tie
don't
it
gang
towards
up
the
on me,
end.
lads.
So, just moving on to Georgia quickly. So, Wales have in fact failed to beat Georgia in their last 4 encounters. Last October, they did. There was a stalemate at a 1-1 draw at the Cardiff City Stadium. Georgia also drew against Ireland last month in a 1-1 encounter in Tbilisi. How do you pronounce that?
I don't want to try.
I also had it listed for the Ramsey stat, and I was just definitely not going to attempt it.
So yeah, that's just a little bit of news regarding Georgia. So moving on to Monday's game with Ireland.
The big one.
The
big one.
The big one,
Yeah.
arguably the
Wales'
biggest Welsh
World
match
Cup
of the year.
final.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the World Cup final before the World Cup. So basically, Everton boss Ronald Koeman is very unhappy with Ireland's boss Martin O'Neill after O'Neill refused to rule out James McCarthy, who hasn't played a single minute in the Premier League this season due to a knee problem.
I really like James McCarthy, and I think if he plays, he will give us some real problems. I think he is probably their best player. Yeah, maybe without Seamus Coleman.
Ireland.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would say
I'd
so.
agree. So yeah.
Yeah, I think he's a great player.
We gotta love the tensions between the
The
international
old
teams on the
international
club level. I mean, they had it especially with Chris Coleman and Real Madrid.
Yeah, of
saying-
course.
Both
remember
saying
that.
different injury statuses of Gareth Bale, and it just seems to be a similar thing again.
Well, I mean, slightly going off on a tangent, but like Cardiff had the same problem with Aaron Gunnarsson in the week, where the Iceland team, who I think they're playing Turkey, they've got to win their last 2 games to qualify. They insisted he was fit to play, yet Neil Warnock was insistent that he couldn't play a single minute. So I think that because the club teams, obviously they've got to deal with them on a day-to-day basis.
But Cardiff aren't necessarily used to dealing with international management tensions. Am I right?
Well, I mean, Aaron Gunnarsson is the Iceland captain, so you know,
Yeah.
he's a quality player.
Yeah.
But because I think the point I was making was that international managers don't care if they're fit during the season. They only care if they're fit during the international breaks. And this is the last one before the World Cup.
So who should it come down to at the end of the day? Who should be the one who says whether they're fit or not?
Oh, the club for sure.
That's
I would
definitely.
say that for any player.
Because they deal with them on a day-to-day basis. They deal with the players. They know their players inside out, stuff
They know
like
him
that.
better.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that Iceland's physio is a part-time dentist. So, you know, like, do you think he knows them better than the Cardiff and the Vale Resort medical
Probably
team?
No, probably not.
Probably not.
So,
Anyway, that was a tangent. I just thought I had to rant about that.
elsewhere in Irish team news, Seamus Coleman, obviously, out with a broken ankle that we
Why?
discussed. Neil Taylor.
Why?
But, and Jonathan Walsh is also set to miss the match on Monday. So manager Roy Keane, assistant manager Roy Keane, the Irish assistant manager of course, commented on the Irish team's reaction to the news that Bale was out injured for the match, which I thought was quite a funny quote.
I'm sure they hosted a small party.
So of course all of these quotes are per the Irish Mirror. Obviously they were not jotted down from the Irish press conference. So quote Roy Keane: "This idea that we are knocking on each other's doors and hugging each other, Jesus," said Keane when asked if the news created a buzz in the Irish hotel. "It shouldn't be in your mindset as a footballer if you see a player missing from any team, that you're getting some sort of enjoyment out of it. Far from it. The fact he's missing doesn't create any sort of magic for us. It's still going to be hard."
That from Roy Keane, who had a career out of ending careers.
I think he's lying. I think they're obviously going to be so happy that
Well,
he's
obviously
not
any
there,
any
you know?
team that's going to come up against Wales without Gareth Bale are going to be happy that Gareth Bale's not in the
It's
squad.
just another thing they don't have to think about.
I do disagree with him, actually, because remember when England got knocked out of the World Cup by Iceland. God, that's the second Iceland mention today.
World Cup or Euros?
Oh, sorry, the Euros.
Euros.
Yeah, I should say. And the Wales team were filmed celebrating, and that got on Instagram and whatnot, and then they were heavily criticised for it.
Quality
That's
video.
just quality scenes, and I think that like teams just need to have that kind of rivalry. I said it last week when I talked about the Huddersfield and Spurs fans clapping each other. Football is about the rivalries. It doesn't matter. I mean, sure, sportsmanship it gets into it, but you should absolutely.
I'm
be
sure.
enjoying that
Say for
aspect.
example, in basketball in the NBA playoffs, if say for example Stephen Curry or LeBron James were out of the NBA playoffs, then the other team would make a big deal about it.
Well, exactly. I mean, you'd be lying if you said Martin O'Neill wasn't preparing his team differently now to when Bale is absent.
Exactly. You're fully right.
But it's hard to prepare considering Wales have played with Gareth Bale so much. Managers coming up against Wales don't know how their playing style is going to go, because either they could adopt a totally new system, go back to 4 at the back, or they could totally catch managers off guard and just continue the same system, but just chucking Ben Woodburn in the Gareth Bale role.
with Woodburn.
Yeah,
starting.
I think if we didn't have Ben Woodburn emerging into the team at the moment, we would be in such a worse place.
Oh yeah, no, I think so too.
Because I think Ben Woodburn especially, he should start matches even when Gareth Bale is fit, I think.
Oh, those two together would be great, but I think the main problem with Ben Woodburn is he's not getting the minutes at Liverpool.
No. We talk about him as if he's this big experienced player who's played a lot of minutes in the Premier League and at club level, but the truth be told, he hasn't had many minutes this season.
It's a lot of pressure to put on a 17-year-old.
But he did have a
a
quality game in Wales' last match.
Well,
True.
Last 2 matches, what we saw was basically Wales relying upon players outside of Aaron Ramsey and Gareth Bale, especially with the substitutes brought on. What we're going to see in this game is these players actually starting, so what they can do from being in the starting 11 as opposed to coming off the bench. So it's definitely a step mark for them to prove their point that they're not just impacts from the bench and that they can cement their team, their place in the team.
I see it as a chance for they got an opportunity, and they should take up their opportunity. If they don't, like you said, well, England earlier, no nonsense managers. You know, if they don't take their opportunity, then
no.
You know,
it's also interesting that Chris Coleman said, didn't he, that he would leave Wales if we got to the World Cup. And even if we did well, he wanted to go back into club management. So potentially Monday night could be Chris Coleman's last game as Wales manager.
This comes on top of the fact that Martin O'Neill said today that he's probably going to extend his contract with Ireland. So different future for both teams, especially after these qualifiers.
So those players are going to be going in knowing full well that they've got to impress the manager if they want to play. I'm not saying that Wales will be switched off and think, well, we don't have to play for Chris Coleman anymore because he's leaving. I'm just saying,
to impress the next manager.
You want to impress the next manager.
It'll be really interesting to see where Wales go in a next chapter without Chris Coleman, because they have got a lot of young talent in the team.
Obviously, it's another topic for another episode, but I think that's going to be a really interesting discussion.
Yeah,
for sure. So just quickly, what is your predicted starting 11 for Wales against, we'll say, Georgia first?
Okay.
Or for both. We'll do both games, because I think the Georgia one people are overlooking, because if Wales do not beat Georgia tonight, then World Cup dreams are over, basically.
Yeah, right.
Unless we get a draw and then beat Ireland.
Okay, well, I'll start. I'll go Hennessy, Gunter on the right, Neil Taylor on the left, Ben Davis, Ashley Williams, and I'm not sure.
Chester?
Yeah, probably Chester. And the back 5. In the midfield, I would probably say Dave Edwards and Joe Allen, with Ramsey in front of them, and then Vokes and Woodburn up front.
Yeah. Liam?
Yeah, I'd go the same. I think I'd go
Liam Ben,
the only rotation Wales seem to make is up top, and obviously potentially Roll Hubson, Carnu coming in, but I think from the back going forward it'll definitely be the same as it's been in the last few fixtures.
I think the one player that's going to be rotated the most is that midfield player, along with Allen and Ramsey, because I think Vokes and Woodburn are both probably going to be the attacking options in the 2 games. It's just who's going to play in the midfield alongside of Allen and Ramsey, of course.
Yeah, I think Dave Edwards always tends to do a job at when he plays for Wales, even if he doesn't do it at club level. For some reason, he's one of those players who always gets into the Wales team and does a job. So I think he's definitely got to start for me.
Okay, so predictions for the Islanders game on Monday. Obviously, this result depends on how upbeat the podcast will be Tuesday
Exactly.
afternoon.
So if we've lost, I think it'll be a 15-minute show of us just moaning.
Hitting heads on table.
We're all going to be standing for the back of the room. I said a draw in midweek. I think I'm going to stay with a draw. I think I said 2-2, so I'm going to say 1-1 instead.
I think we said 1-1.
I said that I think Ireland would nip it.
You said Ireland would nip it. I do think it's going to be a 1-1 draw.
I'm going to go 0-0. I think it'll be
stalemate.
Yeah, I think they'll just block each other out. And
Wales need 4 points from these 2 games to qualify.
Yeah.
As far as
For
I'm
the
concerned.
playoffs at least.
Yeah, exactly.
Positive performances as well, because especially without Bale, I mean,
It's so
they
boring
put
seeing Wales grind out results.
yeah.
Just in
even
terms of
with Bale on the
entertainment,
field,
there would be like no sort of gloss on the field
they
whatsoever.
can't become negative
No.
without
We
Bale.
need Ramsey to step up as well, because he is the next class player.
Well, he's such a quality player, running on from the forward behind the enemy lines.
So that concludes this little sort of bonus episode of In Off the Post podcast, just a little international preview.
We won't be doing episodes every Friday, but I think we're going to try and get a few episodes out on Fridays over the course of the year or so. So, thank you very much for listening.
And thank you for Ben for joining us as well. Of
Thanks,
course, he is also a writer on the South Wales Disclosure. You can catch him writing loads of Swansea content across the next year.
Yeah, I think he's actually one of the guys on our class who's quite underrated.
He is, yeah.
Right, so that concludes the second episode of the In Off the Post podcast. Thank you very much for listening. A few quick plugs. Follow us all on Twitter at DanBevJourno.
At @rdorse_.
At Liam is a journo.
Don't forget to follow the South Wales Disclosure and also this podcast official Twitter account at IOTP blog. And we will see you on Tuesday for the International Review Show. Come on, Wales.
Come on.
Come on, boys.